Hi, folks. Well, it's that time of year again where the papers are full of the problems faced by HSC students and the great difficulties and the stress that it puts on the students these days. Well, I know that people generally don't like it when you use the old remember when approach, but let's just have a look at what happened, at least when I was a teenager underdoing what was then known as matric. And that was in Form 6, which is, of course, now Year 12. Now, basically, in the ancient days when I was a student, by the time we got to Year 10, which was known as intermediate, Year 9 was known as sub-intermediate, but most kids stayed in the class until Year 10. And then about half of them left to go and get jobs. By this stage, they were about 15 to 16, and they would go and get jobs either in a trade or a bank, or if they were women, as a nurse, or being trained to be a nurse and so forth. So about half the students left in Year 10 or intermediate. The next year, in the leaving certificate or Year 11, about another half left again to go and get jobs. And the remainder stayed and did their HSC. Now, of course, or should we say in those days, minimum school leaving age was essentially the end of Year 10 or intermediate, or around about 16 or so. Now, of course, everybody wants to get HSC. It's so important to get HSC, which it's not. And it's one of the reasons, of course, we don't have enough tradies in the place at the moment. There's far too much emphasis on the importance of ATAR and getting your HSC. Many of those people that left school in Year 10 and 11 were not capable, in fact, of easily handling the work involved in the HSC course, which, of course, was getting harder and harder. And it was to their benefit, indeed, that they were permitted to leave and go and get a job and develop their careers. It worked actually quite well. These days, of course, everyone has to stay at school. Life is a great deal tougher. But let's have another look at what used to happen in the old days. In the old days, exams were a regular and continued feature from Year 7 through to Year 12. 3 times a year, there would be exams in each of those years. In Year 7, each of the exams was half an hour. In Year 8, each exam was an hour. In Year 9, each exam was an hour and a half. In Year 10, each exam was 2 hours. In Year 11, each exam was 2.5 hours. And in Year 12, each exam was 3 hours, and there were a couple of 3-hour exams for particular subjects as well. So that everybody was used to the stress of exams. And furthermore, everyone was roughly aware of where they stood in the pecking order. It's strange how we believe that everybody has the same intellectual ability, but we're quite happy about accepting the fact that there is a major difference in physical ability when it comes to sport. There's not too much trouble about accepting that some kids are better at football, for example, than others. But there is a lot of difficulty in accepting that your child is not quite as smart as the other child when it comes to academic stuff. And I have absolutely no idea why this is. But certainly in my time, we were quite comfortable about sitting exams. We'd been weaned on them over a long period of time. And yes, there was some stress involved, of course, but not to any great extent. Everybody knew roughly where they would be and what their outcome would be. And there were some that, in fact, did a great deal better through application, and others that perhaps didn't do quite as well. Also in those days, there was none of this ongoing assessment. It was the exam. You either got it right and passed or you didn't, and that was that. There was no going back. And in fact, this is much more like life. In fact, I think that we've watered down the ability to accept such matters in life. I think basic exams are the way to go. I'd certainly do away with a lot of this assessment during the year, which is far too personal. It involves the teacher at a much greater level. In the case of exams, the answers are generally either right or wrong or close, much more difficult for the teacher to play favourites, as inevitably will be the case from time to time. Why the hell are the students these days suffering from so much stress for HSC? Well, maybe one reason is that they shouldn't be doing HSC in the first place. And they recognise that they are going to have some trouble with it. That's number one. Looking at the comments by the experts, God, I hate experts in the field, three things that they mention are the main causes of stress for HSC students. One is lacking control of their lives. The kids feel they lack control of their lives. Actually, I very much doubt it. Most of the teenage kids these days have extreme control of their lives over their teachers and over their parents. They might not recognise it, but they certainly do. Procrastination is another problem. Well, get used to it. The exams are coming up. You're going to have to learn to get around that one. Get used to it and stop sitting there thinking, oh, God, I'm going to really feel bad because I haven't done any work today. Just do some bloody work. And finally, if I could read feeling unmotivated. Well, again, this might be because they can see no point in it. If they want to get on with their lives in another area, they should not be required to do HSC. Let them go out and do a trade, become an apprentice. We need them badly, and they're very well paid these days. I really think that's great. Part of the problem is that in the past, and I think this is changing, parents think that their kids must have a university degree to get anywhere. Well, not all kids have the skill or the desire to undergo university training. They want to go and work with their hands. They want to do something practical and useful as opposed to the more academic side of things that is too often the case in the universities. They should be permitted to do this. Our system is failing these kids. Part of this, the exercise is that we're forcing kids to do HSC when they shouldn't. Part of it is the fact we haven't got them used to the whole business of tests throughout their schooling career. I think they've been mollycoddled far too much. I think streaming is a really good system to have. Again, you know where you sit in a streaming class. You know roughly where you'll be. You know if you're in the B form, that the kids in the A form are smarter than you, and you can have the incentive to work a bit harder and move along. Streaming is very good for academic and personal development, not what we have at the moment, which I think is just mollycoddling students. I think the other thing, of course, is the whole business of the media telling the kids that they're stressed. If you ask people if they're stressed, they'll always say yes, for crying out loud. There's always stress in life. Get used to it. So that's my take on HSC students and student stress. I don't see any case for it whatsoever. The kids should just get on with it and not worry too much about it. Just get on, study, for crying out loud. In passing, one thing I didn't mention was perhaps the workload. And again, I don't know whether this is the case or not, but you hear anecdotally that the after-hours workload for HSC students is out of control. And this is partly because of the after-school assessment. If you have the exam assessment, the after-school work is not out of control. It's pretty easy, in fact, to study for a major test. But when you have this ongoing stuff continually, that can put a lot of stress and strain on the kids. Our system needs totally revamping from the ground up. We need to look after the kids who want to be practical and use their hands. We need to look after particularly the very bright students and encourage them. And we need to get over this whole system that we have at the moment. We did have a good system in the past. I think a very good system. That the do-gooders and bleeding hearts have managed to devolve it into the system we have now, and there's a great deal that they have to answer for. So there we go. That's my thoughts on the whole business of HSC. Good luck and bye for now.